Good morning, Mr. Sajjad. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you for this interview and giving us your precious time. Before we start, could you please tell us about yourself and what do you do in Canada?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me over, and it's a pleasure to be here and share some information with you and with your prospective clients. As you know, my name is Sajjad Malik. I am a barrister and solicitor. I'm a member of Law Society of Ontario, a business and immigration lawyer, and I practice out of my offices in Greater Toronto area in Ontario, Canada. I previously served in corporate environment, and I remain in public service as well as a former deputy commissioner of tax as well as head of corporate affairs. I've practiced tax law and business law internationally as well, and I've been practicing in Canada for several years in both the business law and immigration law domains. I am currently the vice chair of Citizenship and Immigration Bar in Canada, which is one of the largest bars in the Canada, comprised of mostly business lawyers or immigration lawyers. So thank you very much for inviting me over. I have several offices in Canada. I serve clients from all over the world, Canada, North America, and especially Middle East. And I speak multiple languages, including Hindi, Urdu, English, and some basic Arabic as well.
Thank you very much. We have prepared this interview for our viewers in Iraq. We will be asking you some general questions about opening business in Canada. I have received a lot of emails from interested investors back home saying, how do we open or buy an existing business in Canada? So I have prepared a list of questions. Can foreign business owners open business in Canada and immigrate through opening a business or buying an existing business?
Yes, a foreign national, a qualified foreign national, because there are certain immigration criteria under different programs which Canadian government or provincial governments offer. If they are eligible to immigrate as a business person, then they are able to buy an existing business or start a new business. And based on that, they may be able to immigrate to Canada.
Question number 2. When a business owner immigrates, in case his application is successful, can he bring his family with you? By family, I mean his wife and his children.
Yes, the answer to this question is also yes. And if you are an eligible foreign national who intends to buy a business or start a new business in Canada, you are allowed to bring your dependent spouse, your one spouse, and your dependent children. And dependent children means those children who are below 22 years of age and unmarried. For example, if you have 6 children who are 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 years old, you are able to bring them in. And secondly, if one of them gets married earlier than 22 years of age, say you have a son who's 21 years age and he is married, then that child would be excluded. But yes, your wife is included, your children, all those are below 22 years of age. When you submit the application, they are included. One important thing is that sometimes these applications may take 1, 2, 3 years. So if you have submitted your PR application before your child turns 22, then their age is locked in. So even if the application is approved when the child is 25 years old, he would still be included, as his age was locked in for immigration application purposes when you submitted your application in the immigration system.
Thank you very much. There is a confusion here. So if a business owner immigrates to Canada through business, what is his status? Is he a permanent resident or he is on work visa?
All right. Now, this is a very, very important question, and we need to understand it how this works in the Canadian immigration system. So there are several different programs for business owners or foreign business owners, and which program that person must pick would depend on his particular circumstances, his goals, where does he want to go, which line of business does he wish to get in, whether he wishes to buy a totally new business or give a plan for a new business, or whether that person is with an innovative business idea and doing startup. Now, in a few programs, you may be able to submit your PR application right away, and side by side, you could even come to Canada on a work permit. So that's one category. So there are businesses, if you are one of those eligible candidates, it is possible that you submit your PR application right away and then contemporaneously process your work permit application. And while your PR application is in progress, you are already in Canada and you are working on that business. The second class of people would be those, or the programs would be those who would hold themselves as entrepreneurs, propose a business that, yes, this is the business I will be conducting in Canada or establishing in Canada. And then the government may allow them to come on a work permit in Canada. So initially they are coming on a work permit. They are establishing those businesses, and after they have met their agreement with the government, that whatever they committed to the government that they'll do in terms of business, creating jobs, etc., then at that stage they may be nominated for permanent residence when their PR application is submitted. So these broadly two categories. Yes. One, you can submit PR application right away. Right. Second, you come on a work permit, and in a future date you submit your PR applications.
Thank you very much. Generally speaking, I have categorized 3 pathways for business owners to immigrate. Could you please briefly explain each of these pathways? The first one is buying an existing business or opening a business in Canada. Buying a business, I mean, for example, if you buy a restaurant or a shop or a store in Canada, what are the main general requirements for the foreigners?
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for this question. Now, if you are planning to buy an existing business in Canada, like you said, a restaurant or a barber shop or say a convenience store or some other kind of a business, then first, we are assumed that you are eligible. There are certain eligibility factors in each program. And if we pre-screen and we feel that, yes, you'll be able to meet those eligibility criteria or those factors, assuming you are eligible, if you buy that business, then based on that business, you may be able to come to Canada, and but you have to show that somehow you are adding value to that business, or you are kind of enhancing that business. So if you're able to do that, and this existing business or a new business, then you may be able to come. Now, one thing you have to be aware of, because if you are buying an existing business, it means that you are committing in buying that business. And for example, if it takes, say, a year or 2 to process that application, you have to see whether your seller would be able to wait that long. Since I also practice business law, so what we come across is that there are Canadian buyers and Canadian sellers, business people who are selling and buying businesses among themselves. Now, the normal process is that you like a business, you have a business broker who would look at the business, who'll show you the businesses, then you find a business, you look at that business, you like that business, and you enter an agreement with that seller. And that agreement to sell, which is generally called agreement to purchase or sale of assets, or agreement to buy a corporation or 100% shares of that. When you enter that agreement, normally you agree on a closing date in it, that, all right, we'll have 60 days or 90 days to close that transaction. And then you go to your lawyer, who will do the due diligence, who will do all kind of searches and see whether the business is in good health. There's nothing against the business, no litigation, no bank loan, no writs of execution, and other kind of decrees against it. And when your lawyer has satisfied himself that everything is fine, then the buyer and seller's lawyers, they exchange several legal documents, and then the buyer's lawyer would pay the money to the seller's lawyer. And at that time, the title of the business, the ownership of the business, would transfer to the buyer. So it may be 60 days, maybe 30 days, maybe 90 days. Now, if you are a foreign buyer, you are doing 2 processes side by side. One, you're looking for the business, and then you'll be entering that business transaction. which is different from immigration. It doesn't respect the immigration timelines. Now, based on that, if you have submitted your application to the immigration, that immigration is not bound to decide your case in 2 months or 3 months. It may take a year or so. So if you have already bought a business and your immigration application is taking longer time, say a year, 1.5 years or more, then when would you close that business? Then it may lead into you waiting, you buying the business and then trying to manage it remotely through some other managers or so on. Similarly, if you overcome this hurdle, or if your lawyers, they agree and negotiate somehow, for example, if you are buying a franchise, the franchisors may be a little open towards that, or you could always negotiate, all right, if you want, you're bringing up a franchise, say in a year's time, it may match or correspond to our immigration timelines, then in that case, it may be workable. But if for example, I'm selling a business and I want $500,000 of my sale proceed right away, or 30 days or 60 days, why would I enter into a transaction with a foreign national? I could find a buyer inside who's a Canadian who doesn't have such an issue and just do the transaction, get the money. Yeah. So the answer, it is a complex area. Now it'll depend on what the total circumstances of that transaction are, aspirations are. As a business lawyer, we could find a solution for that as well. But these are the things or issues which one must be aware of before considering those transactions. Now, compared to a totally new business, it's doing a totally new business is easy comparatively, because you are not paying, say, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 right away. The money is, you are processing your application, and once the government allows you to come on a work permit in Canada, then you are physically inside Canada. Then you start laying the bricks for that business, start investing the money gradually over a period of 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years. When you're buying a new business, whatever that amount is, $200,000, $400,000, $600,000, you are paying that amount right away. So if your immigration application doesn't proceed swiftly and doesn't lead to a decision very quickly, then you are bound, you're stuck with that money invested in Canada, and you have to make arrangements for someone to run that business on your behalf. And God forbid, if that application fails, there may be certain reasons or different reasons or failure as well. If that application fails, you're not getting the immigration benefit, but you are stuck with investing that money in Canada, and then you may have to find someone who is willing to buy the business back. So it's a complex area, but yes, within the legal domain, if you're working with an immigration and a business lawyer, or a lawyer who knows both the areas of law, then you'll be a little more comfortable.
Yes, thank you very much. Second type of business is startup business visa. Can you explain what's this pathway? I have heard a lot of people saying that this is very suitable for foreigners to immigrate to Canada through startup visa, startup business.
All right. Now, one misconception I have, because I keep on getting inquiries from different people, and there are foreign nationals who feel that if I don't fit in any category, then perhaps startup visa, any business category, then perhaps startup visa is my chance and I could do it. Now, we have to understand startup companies, the concept of startup companies, we may all be familiar with it, but just to say Airbnb is a startup, Uber is a startup, LinkedIn was initially a startup, but we are not looking to create that kind of businesses. But the idea is that these are innovative businesses. If you have an innovative idea and you intend to establish a business in Canada, and then you are able to secure designation support from the designated organizations within Canada, because IRCC has designated a few organizations which include venture capitals or angel investors or incubators, and they are the people, or they are the business organizations which would do the due diligence. So if you must have a qualifying business, you must have support from one of the designated organization in the form of a support letter of support, and then you should be able to meet the language proficiency and initial settlement funds requirements, because startup visas are risky ventures. That's why government is encouraging people to come in through that route. Now, if you meet all those 4 conditions and the idea is innovative, then based on these factors, that you have a business, you have support from designated organization. You're able to communicate with ease in English or French, a comfortable level, comfort level, not a very high level. And you have to show that in the first year of your presence in Canada, you would be able to meet your family expenses, because startups, they don't give you income right away in the first year, or maybe
Yes.
second or third. You may be earning or break even in third year or fourth year. Now, these are the startup visas, and this is how you go. Now, innovation. So if you are a person who has always done a bricks and mortar kind of a business, who wants a conventional business store, like a convenience store or a gas station, it may not be your pathway. But if you are a tech proficient guy, or somebody who is comfortable creating portals and technology and some kind of, even if it is a conventional business, there you can create a layer of tech on it, and that business has the potential to scale, then you may be able to do it. For example, you marriage.com, it's one example of or these matchmaking websites, or some kind of social networking site, something related to your field, but which is scalable, which you could scale not only within Canada, but to United States and rest of the world. Then this may be a great option, because it is one of those options where you could submit your PR application right away. And during the PR processing, if you are one of the essential members, you may be able to come to Canada to run that business along with your wife, spouse, husband, and dependent children.
Generally speaking, what's the minimum amount of money required for this type of business? Startup business.
So in startup business, there is no minimum or maximum amount. A startup company could start in somebody's garage, and it could be a multi-billion company, or it may need a lot of money to pump in it. So sometimes you say that the startups, when they're growing, they may have a burn rate of $500,000 a month, or something like that. But if it is a decent idea, innovative idea, we have seen that people in startups, even if you have put in an amount of, say, $500,000, $600,000 as a single owner of that startup, it may work, because then in the later stages, you may be putting in more money, but then the company may be generating some revenue at that stage as well. So if you are multiple people, you're allowed to join hands with other founders, and it is recommended as well, because if you are the only owner, then you're bearing all the cost of establishing that business, going to the designated organization, bearing the cost of technology, bearing the cost of there are multiple kinds of lawyers who are involved in it. Your immigration lawyer or your project management lawyer is the one, but naturally you need corporate lawyers. If you need to secure intellectual property, you need intellectual property and trademark lawyers. You need contract lawyers who would be doing the contract part of it. Then you need business management consultants who would be helping you in establishing this startup company, and those people who are preparing you for the designated organization application and everything. So and then naturally you need some money in the company as well, where you are creating traction. If you have created a business, then first year, second year, when you develop technology of that, if you're developing a portal or something, then you need that money. So a lot of money is required at later stages. So if you are 4 or 5 people, you can go up to 5. You can make a team of up to 5 people, but a team of 5 people, every individual should be contributing some value in that business. So if you have a great business idea, innovative, sometimes you have a great idea, but you're not able to somehow convert that idea into a working concept, which could further be developed into a startup business plan. At that stage, I may be able to help as a business as well as immigration lawyer, and we have strong team and external consultants as well who are working with us in this process.
Thank you very much. There's another type of business. It's called intra-transfer company. So I have seen a lot of business owners back home. They have a store. They have a successful business, but they want to open a branch in Canada. But they don't know how to start. So is this what intra-transfer company mean?
Yes, intra-company transfer is a program which is not an immigration program in itself. It doesn't give you PR right away, or it doesn't lead to permanent residence. If you are doing a startup visa or an entrepreneur program, a provincial nominee program, then those are PR programs. When you start them, you intend that yes, you'll secure permanent residence, and there's a pathway available. Even if during the course of your application, the rules change, you are still processed and you ultimately get the permanent residence. Intra-company transfer is a concept which is available to those foreign businesses which have been in existence abroad, and they've been positive, say for the last 3, 4, 10 years, they've been doing businesses there. They have some employees who have worked with them, say a minimum of a year in the last 3 years or so, and now they wish to come to Canada or bring their business to Canada. And then they are creating, in this process, they are creating a foreign branch office or a subsidiary or an affiliate or a parent sub relation, something like that. So when you have that affiliated company in Canada, when you establish that company in Canada, your foreign company, wherever it is, may be able to transfer one of their employees or one of their owners to the Canadian company to run the show. So that gives you a work permit. So if that application is processed successfully, that will give that person a work permit, and that work permit would allow that person to remain in Canada and do that business or flourish that branch office or subsidiary or sister concern or affiliate. So this is the concept. Now, that's a work permit. It doesn't automatically lead to permanent residence. And this is a major misconception that you are, say, putting in. You have to put in some money, because if you're transferring one of your managers through this program in Canada, you have to pay them prevailing wages. You have to rent an office or find a place. You have to be at those Canadian business expenses as well. So you need some liquidity in that. There's no minimum of that, but generally you should have at least $150,000 to $200,000 for that operation to begin with in your accounts in your Canadian company or affiliate. And this work permit may be renewable. Initially, it is issued for 1 year. Later on, you could get further extensions of it. But if you keep on getting extensions, that is not a PR program. You have to find a program through which you will ultimately secure the permanent residence.
You mentioned something about English language proficiency. So for all the programs in Canada, is English test results are required, test scores, for example, IELTS or TOEFL, and what's the minimum band score?
All right. Yeah. So in most of the business program, because here you are coming in Canada to run a business. So if you are operating a, say, barber shop, or you're operating a convenience store or a cleaning company or even a startup company, you are expected to interact with the Canadian communities. Very high level of proficiency is not required, but most of the Canadian small businesses and even startups, they are owned by foreigners. They are owned by foreign nationals or immigrants. And this is true for US as well. So some level of language proficiency is required. And the level which we look at in most of the programs is Canadian language benchmark 5. So
there are 5 in IELTS.
No, not 5 in IELTS. It varies. Like CLB 5 is the Canadian language benchmark. In IELTS, this would be for speaking, reading, writing. This will be around 4.5 or 5 in each of the. So it's different from for each of the bands.
Yes,
but it is around 5. My pleasure. My pleasure.
And the main question, the important question would be, if someone contacts me after posting this video on my platforms, someone wants to get a consultation with you. What are your services and how do you charge? So for example, if I am a business owner, but I'm not sure if the application will be successful or not, do you charge in advance all of the fees, or it's step by step?
Yeah, so it depends on what kind of business, what kind of a business immigration program you're signing up for, whether you're signing us only for the immigration side of it, or you also want to sign us up for the business side of it, the business legal side of it. Whether you are only signing us up for the business or immigration, or business and immigration, as well as the business services, other business services which are required, this will all depend on that. And each person's mandate would depend on what part of the work they want to mandate us for, and the fee would depend on it. Now, sometimes we are we are comfortable doing one block fee model. There are three different kinds of actually. So let me just take an opportunity to explain that, and it connects with this. There are three different kinds of fee models in Canada. One is an hourly basis model where you put some retainer in the lawyer's account, $3, $4, $5, $10,000, whatever, depending on the case, and then lawyer starts working on that on a particular mandate, and then the lawyer is charging you for each hour of work which is being done towards the file, whether he's working on your file, whether he's interacting with immigration authorities, whether he's holding consultations with you, whether you're emailing, telephone calls, everything is taken care of. It's recorded, and then you are charged periodically on that. So if you put in, say, $5,000 to $10,000, and like those five, he has done the work or she has done the work, and that money is consumed within, say, 6 weeks or so, then you have to put fresh retainer. So we don't know how much time would actually be spent. It varies from case to case, but whatever is there, it's on actual basis that we do it. The second model is where you are doing it on a fixed fee basis because the client wants some kind of certainty.
Yes.
Most of the clients in North America, they understand the hourly fee model, or in the Western countries as well. But sometimes when they're coming from jurisdictions where this hourly fee model is not prevalent, then they want some kind of certainty. So in the initial negotiation stage, we agree on a lump sum or fixed amount of money that, all right, for this particular case, we'll charge you, say, $30,000 or $20,000 or $100,000, depending on what the work is. And then we agree on the timelines as well. So all that money is not spent, all that work is not done on the day one. So in most of the cases, we do an installment kind of a plan where you sign up and you pay some amount of monies, then 3 months, 6 months later, you pay another amount of money, and then you pay another amount of money. The last model is contingency model. And contingency model is that where you agree on something that, all right, this is something which we are going to do for you, and this is the deliverable. This is something which we'll deliver to you. Now, when you deliver it, most of the money will be paid at that time. So if we say that we'll help you in getting the letter of support from the designated organization, then when we secure you that, or when we are able to confirm that we are getting you a letter of support and say this much time, then that's the time when we'll charge you the money and you'll pay the money. Now, one side is that you have to understand that if we do a contingency fee model, it's mostly for the clients who are already in Canada, because they are in a well-developed system. They have credit lines, they have some kind of assurances. We have the remedy, we can go against them if they don't pay and default, and yes, remedies are available. But for the foreign clients, we cannot run after clients in 100 countries or so, and then we'll be only doing litigation and not doing it. So in that case, what we do is that we ask them, when they sign the retainer, we ask them to put the money in our trust account. Trust account is like an escrow account, and then we agree on that this money is lying on the escrow account unless certain milestone has been reached, or unless we have done some work on the file. And depending on the milestones, we'll charge when we deliver a certain milestone to you. And at that time, then the client is invoiced, or if it goes from there. If this is, for example, we agreed on something that we'll deliver you this, and then we are unable to deliver you that model, that deliverable, then we are able to refund you the money from trust account back to your account. So this is contingency model, but then you should have money to be placed in our trust account. So we have the comfort that if we bill you $50,000 at a later stage, we would be struggling to get the money from you and running after you. So we do it depending on the case. It's a mix of all these things, or it could be one way or the other. Most of the times it's a block fee, or in startup cases, some contingency model which we apply.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I think you've answered most of the questions. Do you have anything else to add for foreigners who are interested to immigrate to Canada? And one more question: does it worth it to spend all of this money in Canada?
Okay, so first thing, what do I want to tell the foreign nationals? Now, whenever they are looking to immigrate to Canada, they must make sure that they are going to a lawyer, a Canadian immigration lawyer, or a Canadian business and immigration lawyer who is living in Canada, who is admitted in the Canadian Bar Law Society of Canada, and most of the lawyers, they write barrister and solicitor with their names. So if you are going to one of the lawyers, you are likely more protected compared to going to an agent who is not a licensed lawyer, who's living abroad. There's no rule, there's no application of Canadian law in a foreign jurisdiction. So someone who holds out that I am an immigration agent or a consultant, but he's not actually regulated or licensed by a Canadian regulatory authority, then you are not only risking your chances because that person hasn't come through a streamlined vetting process and education training process, and he is not regulated by a lot. Canadian law doesn't apply on him. So if you hand over your $50, $100, $900,000 to somebody who's not a lawyer, he doesn't have a trust account, and he runs away, then you may not be able to get the money back. And of course, someone who's not trained in that, how can you expect him to provide you the legal advice? So avoid all those immigration agents and consultants, so-called abroad, who are not licensed, and look for a lawyer. It's very easy in these days with the internet connectivity, and something you could always ask them to verify their good standing with the law society, and go from there. Is it worth it? It is absolutely worth it, because if you are looking to come to a society which is more productive, I would say, and which is more fair, there's rule of law. You are trying to educate your children in Canada. You want them to work here. You want to do business yourself in a stabler country. You have vicinity to the United States, which is the largest market. It's worth it. I would only put a couple of things in perspective utilizing this opportunity. When you're coming to Canada, we have many clients who are living abroad, Middle East, Far East, other countries, South Asia, and then at a certain stage, they wish to send their children for North American education in US or in Canada. Now, Canada is becoming a little more popular, because if you have got educated here, there are maybe certain pathways which would lead to the PR. So you are not only studying in Canada, but that child or that foreign national student may have an opportunity to immigrate at a later stage as well. Of course, they are able to work 3 hours on an open work, 3 years on an open work permit as well. But a foreign national may be paying 4 times, 5 times compared to a permanent resident. So if you have children, if you have 3 or 4 children who are coming to Canadian universities at a later stage, you're looking at paying around, depending on the university, for the topmost universities, the tuition fees around $50,000, $60,000 a year. So 4 years of undergrad, you're looking at that $200,000 plus of tuition fee for one child. For 4 children, it's $800,000. If you become a PR, then that tuition fee comes down to about 1/4 of that level. So you are not only saving $600,000-$700,000 in it, but you're also saving in terms of the boarding, lodging, which you are providing to your child, because you now have a house in Canada, home in Canada, where whole of the family is lying, and you're not sending your children to the all these places. So that's one thing. Second, even if you are on an entrepreneur or a starter visa, and you are coming to Canada in between, when your PR application is in process, you haven't secured the permanent residence, that's the time when your spouse may also be able to apply for an open work permit. So if that time is, say, 3 years, it takes 3 years for you to secure permanent residence, but your spouse is here during that time working in Canada, he or she is earning that money from Canada legitimately in Canadian standards. Whatever her or his level of education and experience is, she would be utilizing that knowledge and doing a Canadian job where she's earning the money. Third thing, you have an excellent healthcare system as well.
Thank you very much for this interview. I look forward to talk to you again in future for maybe other interviews about immigration to Canada. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, day, night, whichever part the people are who are watching.